Hello, my name is Dr. Ben Thompson. Welcome to the Treble Health podcast. Today we are here with Steve. Steve was diagnosed with tinnitus. He went to get a hearing test and it showed his hearing was in the normal range. Steve, we're here today to learn about your success story with tinnitus, what went on during this journey, what you used to help you get better, what kind of tools did you lean on, and ultimately where you are today. So first, welcome, and why don't you start by telling us back when this all started, how many months ago was that? And what were your initial symptoms when this all started?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Ben. So it started for me back in January of 2022, so 8 months ago now. I went to bed one night and woke up the next morning with a buzz in my head, in my ears, and I was fine. I didn't have any, I wasn't exposed to any loud music the night before. It was just a regular night for me. And I woke up and I had this clogged feeling in my nose, like I was stuffy, and a clogged feeling in my ears. And I kind of brushed it off as like, oh, I'm hearing this kind of sound, but it was more for me like, oh, this is like a cold coming on. And, at first I didn't really think too much of it. I figured, well, once I clear my sinuses, this kind of buzz will kind of dissipate. And over time, about a week later, my nose got better and my sinuses were better, but the sound kind of remained. And that's kind of where I kind of started getting a little worried about it.
And what do you do in your professional life?
Well, I'm a pharmacist and I work in the pharmaceutical industry.
So as that professional, perhaps that gave you a certain lens or a certain perspective of, okay, let's look at the evidence, let's look at the research, let's look at the science. How did that process go at the beginning?
Yeah, it wasn't just my science background, my medical background. I actually have been exposed to tinnitus my whole life. My dad has Meniere's disease, and so growing up, had a sense of what tinnitus was. He experienced it, and even when I was a little kid, I remember saying, "Oh, I would hate to have that." So it was always in my conscious that ringing in the ears was something that my family member and even my mother has it now experienced. So that was the initial like kind of got me worried because I knew it was kind of a serious condition and tends to not go away for some people, and it just was very troubling to hear. So that was kind of like the basis for, I think, knowing so much about it, like really made it kind of worse because I started thinking more about it and then kind of getting nervous and associating such a negative, mindset towards it.
And then we wanted to record this because you've watched other success stories and you told me before we started that you wanted to pass on that goodwill and share your story. Let's go to those first few months of I have tinnitus. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. I'm hoping it gets better very quickly, but then after weeks pass, did it get better? Did it not? Did it get worse? Walk us through those first few months and what you experienced and what you ended up doing in terms of taking action.
Yeah. So it kind of slowly snowballed into getting worse and worse. And the more I thought about it, the more it became more prevalent. And so those first couple of weeks were pretty bad. And I would say it just got worse from there. And it got so bad that I really couldn't concentrate anymore at work. I would say consume 95% of my day. The sound seemed to be getting louder. It's all I could think about. I stopped eating. I did not sleep very well. And it just kind of snowballed from there. My emotional state, my mental state was in bad shape. I was depressed, to be honest with you. And I never really had experienced depression before until this set in. And it just kind of got worse and worse to the point where I could no longer function and I had to go on medical leave at work. I just could not concentrate. And I found myself like at a loss. And that's when I reached out and then did a lot of, doing my research and looking up. I found I found others and, gave me a sense of hope and that, things could get better. And slowly they did. The action I took was to kind of just start looking into the positive stories, like you mentioned. That really was important to know that it was possible to get better. And I think that was really the turning point is once I believed that I can get better, that's when it started to happen. And it probably took, I would say around April. So for like 4 months into first getting it, where I started to see some glimmer of hope.
That hope helped you change your perspective, but we know that tinnitus is not only a belief or in this psychological space, that it does take time and there is this neuroplasticity that can happen. Certain tools, techniques, approaches can facilitate that process. What did you do in terms of your new behaviors, the new technology you used, the new mindset you had? How did that affect you day to day moving forward now that we're in this period of I have the problem, I'm inspired to take action, what am I going to do?
Yeah. So understanding what tinnitus retraining therapy was from hearing it through from your videos and doing some research about how folks did get better and understanding how you need to kind of distract your mind away from it. And the tools that I used was sound therapy. And it started off as just a sound generator in the room, masking it, but understanding that you don't want to mask it fully. You want to kind of hear it, but just below that sound. And so it would allow me to kind of calm down a little bit, right? I found that it worked, but it wasn't really something. I couldn't take the sound generator with me everywhere. And I had to, was moving around. In fact, when this first happened in February, I went on vacation. It was just a miserable time. But I thought that the sound generators on the ear level would be something that would give me more confidence. And actually it did. I got ear level sound generators that were programmed to my tinnitus range, and it just made me relax and calm down. Like I had some protection, if you will. I had some way to remove the constant focus on it. And that was what I think also was such an important part. And of course, talking to, in this case, I had Suzanne was assigned to me as my audiologist from Treble Health, and just having that person who had the experience and really gave me the confidence that I could get better. And she answered a million questions. I must have had like so many questions for her over those first couple of weeks. And we, went through what I was experiencing. And, it was just that confidence that I could get better and that I had the tools to help me distract my mind. And I really think that so much of it there is an element to that neuroplasticity where you start thinking away from it or through it, past it. And then over time, it kind of just increased. That the time where I wasn't thinking about it grew from like 95% was right here to like little by little. And I just started getting more and more confident.
I'm happy to hear that. So the combination of technology providing sound therapy treatment and the expert audiologist answering a lot of questions, reducing that anxiety, getting out of those negative thinking loops. Would you say those were the two main tools that carried you through to where you are now?
Yep. And I also added CBT. So I did download the CBT app on Tinnitus to help me cope with, some of the tools to help me distract my mind and to stay positive and not to get caught in that loop of constant negative thinking and only just amplified it worse. It was hard, man. It wasn't easy. Obviously, it did take some time. But again, I think the sound generators allowed me to look past it. And then the confidence from knowing that people do get better. Most people do get better, and understanding the habituation process does take time. I allowed myself at first, I wanted it to get better immediately the next day, and it's not getting better. And I kept on, putting pressure on myself to improve immediately every day. And it wasn't possible. And I realized I had to extend my allowance for improvement, knowing that it does take 6 months, 18 months, in some cases longer. So I had to kind of step back and say, okay, give me a month from now and I'll check back and see how I'm doing. That allowed me to kind of calm down. And over time, I did see that improvement. And so I needed to hear from Suzanne say, you're doing great. You're going to get better, and promise, promise that it will get better. And so it was really something that I relied on.
This is a short break from today's video to announce the Tinnitus Guide by Treble Health. Do you want to learn about the newest tinnitus treatments and management tips? Click the link in the description of this video to get your free copy of the Tinnitus Guide by Treble Health.
Tinnitus is different than most medical conditions because of the time frame that it takes to rehabilitate, right? So a wrist injury, a knee injury, those are typically weeks to months, but not as long as tinnitus habituation. And working in pharmacy, working with medications, you probably see a much quicker change or a much quicker impact on the intervention or the treatment. Whereas what the audiology community, what we know at Treble Health is the timeline that can happen. So you might be freaking out thinking it's been a month, I don't feel any different, or I barely feel better, this must not be working. And the professional who has a lot of more experience and knowledge of the full timeline of this says, well, Steve, you're doing everything that you need to, and that result after a month is not a bad thing. Just give it more time, because what we see is those who give it more time and stay true to the treatment end up having a really good result. So I do think that's really important to share to our audience who's listening. Talk us through the maybe challenges you had or the perspective you had about tinnitus maskers. So the ear level sound generators, they're also called tinnitus maskers. We highly recommend them at Treble Health. We work with them via telehealth. One can also get them through a local clinic. There are different ways to get these devices. It's not only the technology itself, but how it's programmed by the audiologist based on your hearing and your needs. So tell us about how you ended up making the decision of, okay, I'm going to try tinnitus maskers. And then what were those initial days or weeks like?
I originally, like I said, I started off with the sound generator in my room, and then I went on vacation and I couldn't take it with me. And I just had a really bad time. It was really at the height of the tinnitus, kind of the trap that I was in, and that distress syndrome. And I just talking to my wife, and she said, when we get back, you get those sound generators and you'll have, you'll be able to stay in a room. I always remember sitting in the restaurant and, it was just I was listening to crickets. I don't know if the crickets were in a high frequency range, and I had some kind of relief. And then when I was in this restaurant with those people, it did not have that. And I just said, well, I need to get to the point where I could take them with me and have that confidence that I could, mask it to the point where I could look past it and start engaging with the people around me. And so it was when I got back from vacation, I made the appointment with you, and we had that discussion. And over time, I said, I think it's best to do that. And, they're so discreet, you can't even see them when they're in my ears. And I didn't have any problem with that. I know some people are concerned about that, but the way the technology is now, they're so small, it wasn't even an issue for me. I just was really caring about getting better. And I knew that was one way that I could get better quicker.
Do you have them with you?
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, size is something that is perhaps a reason people don't try them. Let me ask you this. There can be this misconception that if I get those medical devices for tinnitus on my ears, then I'm wearing them forever. Then I'm giving up to tinnitus. I'm admitting I'm losing. I'm putting the white flag in the air and I'm saying, okay, I'm now going to have to use sound therapy forever. But that's not the case. Was that the case in your experience? Tell us about that.
No, not at all. And I'm glad you said that because, that was something that I had initially thought, but I was reassured by Suzanne and others that it really is just a way to get you past this stage. And it's true. I did wear them and written it initially 12 hours a day. And I did that for weeks and weeks. And then I slowly, added some time where I didn't need them. I didn't have them on. And I would say it went from 12 hours a day to like maybe 8 hours a day, then 4 hours a day until maybe 1 to 2 hours a day. And where I am now is I technically don't even put them in unless I'm having a really bad day. For some reason, I need to put them on just to kind of mask a little bit. But the truth is, it was just a way to get me to a point where I don't need them. And it's the truth. I mean, and so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about thinking it's a long-term thing. For me, once you habituate, putting them back in is almost a reminder that you have it. And almost it's like, I don't even need to do that anymore,
So important to share that that's the end result we're going for, which we call habituation. We're going to put up an image on the screen right now. Steve, you and I are going to talk about this for a moment. And viewers at home, take notes here, try to read these stages. These are the 4 stages of habituation. At Treble Health, we connect expert audiologists with patients like Steve. And what we do, Steve, as you know, is we guide you through these stages of habituation. Stage 1 being the most intense, the most severe, the highest awareness of tinnitus, the most worry, anxiety about the condition, often accompanied by loss of sleep or appetite. Now, as the stages go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, Stage 4 is that habituated state. Tinnitus is rarely noticed. We're quickly able to redirect attention away from it when we hear it. Full emotional acceptance, it no longer elicits negative feelings or thoughts. Talk to us about the timeline that you went through to go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, and where are you today?
So I would say I was in stage 1 for about 3.5 months to 4 months. It was when I went on vacation the second time in April. And it was the first time, at that time I had my ear level sound generators on. And it was at that time I started noticing for the first time, I didn't hear it. That was in April. And so that was probably stage 2, where I was experiencing moments, if it was a minute or two, where I forgot about it. And that was really the turning point for me, is going to stage 2, and then that just extended over time. I would say where I am now, I'm 8 months in, I'm probably somewhere between stage 3 and 4. There are times where it still kind of annoys me. I haven't really figured out what it is that triggers it more than other days. I could be lack of sleep, could be stress. I think it definitely is those things. From 1 to 2 for me, about 3 to 4 months, and then from 2 to 3, another 2 months, and where I kind of am now, between 3 and 4.
What can happen is that if you did nothing, it would take more time to go between stages, and you might not actually get to stage 4. But understanding what treatments are out there, understanding what therapies are out there, reaching out for help, which is what we provide, which is how we got connected, of course, can only expedite this process to make it as quick and easy as possible. But this is not a quick or easy process, right? So tell us some advice you might have to someone who's in stage 1 or stage 2, and maybe they haven't tried much, or similar to you, they've just used their phone or a speaker for some sound therapy. They're not quite sure what they should be doing with it, and they've gotten a hearing test, they've been to an ENT doctor, but they're kind of on an island trying to figure it out by themselves. What kind of advice would you have, whether that's tinnitus maskers, connecting with a professional, or doing something on one's own? What kind of advice would you have for that individual?
I would say if you're in stage 1 right now, I was there. I know exactly what it's like, and just know that it will get better. It does get better. It just takes time, and allow yourself that time. Do all the above. Have the sound generators, have the sound therapy, talk to someone who knows about the condition and who could kind of give you the confidence that you will get better. And it was really, to me, it was a combination of all those things, and really staying positive and telling myself it's not that bad. It will be better. And it was when I was relaxed and calmed down from that hyper awareness, that's when I had those periods. And I remember I was sitting in a restaurant the first time it ever happened. I was in a restaurant because up until this point, it was always right there in the forefront, and it was always like there. I just got lost in the conversation, and I caught myself like, wait, I didn't hear it for the last minute. That was the point. I said, okay, it's possible. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to me because it happened to so many other people. Just know it could take time. Give yourself the time. Don't put a timeline on yourself, and that gets more frustrating. And it doesn't always get better in time. It gets better, and then you have a couple of bad days. I've been through that cycle a number of times to know that when I do have a couple of days where it's kind of annoying more than it was, that it will get better, and it does. So you have to experience that, but just know that doing the right thing is staying positive, distracting your brain. I always tell them, I think you have to ignore it. How to cure it is to ignore it. I know it's easier said than done, but you really do have to not think of it, not think through it. And I wanted to tell people, because when I first was listening to these success stories all the time, I was like, what does it sound like now? What did it sound like before? And we had these numbers, we assigned numbers to the loudness. I would say that I was kind of fortunate. I don't think it was always so loud. I would say it was probably around a 5 or 6. And now it's about like a 1 or 2 on some days. What that means is like this perception of the sound is definitely lower. It really is for me. And I think it only happened because of that ability to stop focusing on it and stop thinking of it. And eventually your brain kind of just puts it out of my awareness. And that's what will happen. It does happen. And I just stick with it, and don't put so much pressure on yourself that it has to get better tomorrow, because that's impossible. It does take time. Anything to do with neurological system in your brain takes time to correct.
Steve, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm here recording this from a sound treated booth, and I appreciate you sharing this from your home. If anyone's listening out there, please leave us a comment. If this was helpful, please leave a comment on YouTube, helpful. Steve, thank you again for sharing your time. If anyone would like professional guidance or tinnitus maskers, please find us at treblehealth.com, and our team of telehealth audiologists can help you. Steve, thank you so much again. Have a nice one.
Thanks, Ben. You too.
Thank you for watching today's video with Treble Health. Check out our next video by clicking the button on this screen or another recommended video. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much. See you on the next video.